You know, when you sit in a dark theater and the screen just like absolutely explodes with action, we are talking tens of thousands of charging soldiers, colossal war animals, sweeping CGI landscapes that just completely make your jaw drop.
Right, yeah.
It is incredibly easy to be blinded by the spectacle of it all, you know?
Yeah.
We walk out of the cinema, our ears are still ringing, and we instinctively credit that visceral thrill to the sheer scale of the production.
It's the natural reaction. Blockbuster cinema is practically designed to overwhelm your senses.
Exactly.
When a film dominates the global conversation like that, the default assumption is always that the budget and the visual effects teams did all the heavy lifting.
And today, we are talking about what might be, well, the ultimate modern example of that kind of overwhelming, culturally dominant spectacle. S.S. Rajamouli's two-part epic Bahubali.
Oh, absolutely. A total masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, it shattered box office records, it transcended regional boundaries in India, and became an absolute global phenomenon. And people, marvel at the gravity-defying stunts, the vibrant world building, the sheer audacity of those action sequences.
Right.
But here's the thing, and honestly, this is the entire mission of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
The real secret to a globally successful epic like Bahubali is not the visual effects.
Not at all. I mean, the millions spent on CGI are essentially just the paint on the walls. The actual secret lies entirely in its microscopic structural DNA.
Yeah.
Rajamouli didn't just write a sprawling plot. He engineered a narrative engine.
Okay, let's unpack this because we are basing this deep dive on a fascinating breakdown of our source material today. We are looking specifically at Chapter 1 of John Truby's Masterclass book, The Anatomy of Story.
Yes, the holy grail for screenwriters.
Right, and we are using Bahubali as the ultimate case study to explore it. The goal here is to show you that before a writer can even think about drafting a single line of snappy dialogue or mapping out some massive multi-stage battle sequence, the story must have a profound structural foundation.
Because if the invisible architecture fails, the audience just checks out. I don't care how good the explosions look.
Totally.
Which is why Truby's methodology starts at the absolute bedrock, the very first building block of any narrative, and, well, arguably the one that modern blockbuster writers bungle the most, is the premise.
The premise, yeah.
Truby defines the premise as your entire story stated in a single active sentence. It's the synthesis of your main character, the inciting event, and the final narrative outcome.
Wait, a single sentence?
Just one sentence.
For a massive two-part Indian cinematic epic that spans multiple generations, features dozens of characters, and runs for, over 5 hours in total? That sounds almost impossibly reductive.
I know, it sounds reductive until you realize it's actually an exercise in ruthless discipline. If we look at the source material's breakdown of Bahubali, the premise is distilled into this exact sentence.
Okay, let's hear it.
Quote, when an orphaned young man raised in a secluded village discovers he is the rightful heir to the Mahishmati Empire, he must embrace his legacy, rescue his captive mother, and lead a rebellion to defeat his tyrannical uncle.
Wow. I love how tight that is.
Right.
And knowing that our listeners are already familiar with the nuts and bolts of storytelling,
Right.
we don't really need to define what an inciting incident is, but we do need to look at the mechanics of why this specific sentence works so well.
Yeah, let's break it down.
It's kind of like looking at the mathematical formula for a chemical reaction.
Yeah.
You have the starting state, right?
Yeah.
The orphaned young man in a secluded village.
Yeah.
Then you introduce the catalyst, discovering he is the heir. That forces the core action, which is rescuing the mother and leading the rebellion.
Exactly.
Which finally results in the final state, defeating the tyrant.
And notice how every single verb in that sentence requires active forward momentum. Discovers, embrace, rescue, lead, defeat.
No passive voice there.
None. Truby emphasizes that if a narrative cannot be synthesized into one clear, active sentence like this, the story lacks a spine. The writer might have a document full of incredible lore or great concept for a magical world, but they don't actually know what the core trajectory of their protagonist is.
Which explains so much about why so many modern franchise films feel, wandering and hollow.
Oh, absolutely.
You could physically feel it in the theater when the movie is just a sequence of, and then this happens, and then this happens, instead of, therefore this happens.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
But having that single sentence premise only gives us the blueprint, right? The flat, two-dimensional map of the plot. It tells us what happens, but it completely leaves out the feeling.
The soul of it.
Exactly.
Right.
So how does a storyteller elevate a functional blueprint into a transcendent mythic experience that actually gives you goosebumps?
Well, that requires moving beyond the basic premise and developing an internal, abstract logic that organizes the entire narrative. Truby calls this the designing principle.
The designing principle.
Yeah. It's the mechanism that shifts the story from the what to the how and the why. His formula is essentially story process plus original execution equals designing principle.
Okay, so we take the classic story process, something like the hero's journey or reclaiming the lost throne.
Right.
And we look for Rajamouli's original execution of that in Bahubali.
Exactly. And Rajamouli's designing principle is brilliant in its physicality. His execution is this: force a man who is blissfully unaware of his royal identity to cross an impossible physical boundary, thrusting him into a multi-generational saga of betrayal where he must restore the lost moral order of a corrupted kingdom.
The impossible physical boundary, the waterfall.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that the film's iconic waterfall isn't just stunning CGI scenery meant to look good on a poster. It is a literal geographic manifestation of the story's entire abstract theme.
Hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because I feel like this is a trap a lot of writers fall into.
Okay, hit me.
If I write a sci-fi script, and I put my protagonist in a giant, neon-lit, radioactive cyber dungeon, it's a cool setting.
Sure.
But that doesn't automatically give my story structural weight, right? Is every cool set piece in a movie a designing principle?
Definitely not. No, a cyber dungeon or a volcano lair is usually just an aesthetic choice. It's just a cool backdrop for a fight scene.
Right.
A setting only ascends to the level of a designing principle if it visually and structurally executes the core thematic journey of the narrative. The geography itself must force the character's internal progression.
Ah, okay. So how does the waterfall in Bahubali accomplish that kind of thematic heavy lifting?
Look at the whole vertical symbolism of the world Rajamouli built. The waterfall is a colossal, practically insurmountable vertical barrier.
Right.
At the very bottom of this barrier, you have a simple, pastoral, deeply maternal village. It is characterized by innocence and safety, but also extreme isolation. Then, at the very top of the waterfall, you have the Mahishmati Empire. It is complex, imperial, incredibly corrupt, and ruled by a tyrant.
Oh, wow. So the map of the world is literally a vertical representation of the protagonist's transition from innocence to devastating responsibilities.
Precisely. By forcing the hero, Shivudu, to literally physically climb this impossible barrier, the movie is executing a classic mythic journey through its geography.
He isn't just scaling a rock face because the director wanted a cool climbing montage.
Right. The act of climbing is a lost king of physically pulling himself up from obscurity, defying gravity to return and end a 25-year curse of tyranny. The setting is the plot.
That makes perfect sense. The environment is actively participating in the character's ascension.
Yes.
But of course, once he crosses that physical boundary, right, when Shivudu reaches the top of the waterfall and actually enters the empire, the geography has sort of done its job.
Exactly.
You can't just wander around looking at the palace architecture for 2 hours. The story immediately needs a human engine to drive the tension forward.
Which brings us to the necessity of a central conflict. To give the premise actual momentum, Truby insists the writer must establish a clear central conflict by answering one ruthlessly direct question: who fights whom over what?
It strips away all the pretentious world building and gets right down to the dramatic friction. I love that.
It demands absolute clarity. And in Bahubali, this conflict is beautifully, almost mathematically symmetrical.
How so?
Well, in the present timeline, the main hero, Mahendra Bahubali, fights his uncle, the tyrant Baladeva. That answers the who fights whom.
Right.
And over what. They are fighting over control of the Mahishmati throne and the freedom of Queen Devasena, who has been held captive in chains for a quarter of a century.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because it's not just a straightforward present-day conflict. It is an echo.
Yes.
Rajamouli takes that basic conflict and expands it across time, making the present-day fight an exact mirror of the past. 30 years earlier, in the previous generation, Mahendra's father, Amarendra Bahubali, competed against that exact same opponent, Baladeva.
Over the exact same throne, and for the exact same woman's love and freedom. The symmetry is staggering.
If we think about this not just as a cool plot twist, but as a mechanical storytelling device, it's like striking a tuning fork.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, when the past timeline is struck, the father fighting the uncle, the present timeline vibrates at the exact same frequency. The son fights the uncle for the same reasons, and the audience subconsciously feels that resonance.
That resonance is exactly what elevates a standard action movie rivalry into a feeling of mythic destiny.
Because it's structurally inevitable. This isn't just a random clash of personalities where two guys just don't like each other.
Right.
Because they are fighting for the exact same stakes across two completely different generations, the conflict becomes deeply personal and inescapable. The son is stepping into a footprint left by the father 30 years ago, facing the exact same forces of corruption.
Yeah.
The structure literally demands that they collide again and again until one of them is completely, utterly destroyed.
It creates a sense of dread and anticipation that you simply cannot buy with visual effects.
No amount of CGI can do that.
Exactly. But a great epic doesn't just show characters fighting inescapable conflicts. Countless blockbuster movies feature massive, perfectly balanced rivalries, and yet the audience still walks away feeling totally empty.
We've all seen those movies.
Right. The reason is that a truly great story must show its characters changing as a direct result of those conflicts.
The internal journey. The action on the screen has to cost the character something internally, or it's just meaningless choreography.
You nailed it. And John Truby maps out this internal mechanism with a very simple equation. Weakness times action equals changed person.
Weakness times action equals changed person. Okay, let's test that equation against the main hero in the present day, Shivudu.
Let's examine his starting state at the bottom of the waterfall. Shivudu's fundamental weakness is his overwhelming naivete. He completely lacks true purpose. He is plagued by this restless, almost obsessive need to climb the waterfall, but he doesn't actually understand why. He is totally oblivious to his true royal lineage and completely blind to the agonizing suffering of his actual people who are living under tyranny just above his head.
Wait, hold on. I struggle to see Shivudu as weak in any traditional sense.
How do you mean?
Well, if you watch the first act of this film, the guy is introduced as practically a demigod. He literally uproots a massive, solid stone temple shrine with his bare hands and carries it on his shoulders.
That's true.
He is doing superhuman leaps across chasms. How can Truby's requirement for weakness apply to a guy who is functionally invincible in Minute 1?
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of narrative psychology, physical capability is entirely distinct from moral or internal direction. A character can be a physical titan and still be structurally weak.
Because he doesn't know what to do with that strength.
Precisely. Shivudu is a powerhouse physically, but internally he is an aimless boy. He is a wanderer without a cause.
Right.
For a story about the restoration of a kingdom, aimlessness is the ultimate fatal flaw. That is his true weakness. So we apply the next part of the equation, his basic action.
Okay.
His action is crossing that waterfall, discovering the tragic truth of his family's slaughter, and stepping up to lead a grassroots rebellion against the highly trained Mahishmati army.
And the result of multiplying that internal weakness by that massive external action is the changed person.
The transformation is profound. He goes from being a carefree, almost irresponsible village wanderer into a heavily burdened visionary king.
Yeah.
The climax of his character arc isn't just a physical victory, it's a moral one. He literally swears a sovereign oath that under his rule, every single citizen will live with their head held high.
And here's the genius of that structure.
Yeah.
That majestic oath would mean absolutely nothing to the listener if we hadn't seen him start out as an oblivious kid playing in the river.
Exactly.
If he was just a noble, perfectly responsible king from the opening credits, there is no emotional resonance, the audience wouldn't care.
The structure demands all three elements missing in tandem. Without the initial emotional blindness, the action feels hollow. And without the terrifying action of facing the tyrant, the internal change from boy to king is unearned. The narrative math must balance.
It is incredibly satisfying when you see the invisible architecture of a story hold up under that kind of scrutiny.
It really is.
But there is one final piece to this Chapter 1 puzzle. We have the premise, the physical designing principle, the tuning fork generational conflict, and the internal change.
Yep.
How do all these distinct elements lock together to prove the storyteller's ultimate philosophical point?
This brings us to the pinnacle of Truby's foundational mechanics. It is what he calls the moral choice. This is the moment the entire structure has been building toward.
The ultimate crucible for the character.
And the secret to a genuinely dramatic moral choice, the thing that separates transcendent epics from, Saturday morning cartoons, is that it cannot simply be a choice between good and evil.
Because a choice between good and evil isn't a choice at all. If the hero has to decide between saving a bus full of children or detonating a biological weapon, we learn nothing about their internal values. Any sane human chooses the good option. It's a fake dilemma.
Exactly the point Truby makes. For a choice to generate profound dramatic friction, it must be a choice between two undeniable positives, or a choice of avoiding two severe negatives.
So the author forces the protagonist into a scenario where they must sacrifice something they deeply, genuinely care about no matter what decision they make.
Yes.
A problem has a solution, but a dilemma only has a sacrifice.
Beautifully put. In Bahubali, this architectural masterpiece of a dilemma is dramatized most powerfully in the past timeline through the father character, Amarendra Bahubali.
Oh man, Amarendra's situation is the emotional core of the entire saga.
It is. Amarendra is faced with an agonizing, impossible decision between two profound positives.
Okay, what's positive A?
Positive A is keeping his inherited rightful place as the ruler of the Mahishmati Empire. He is the universally beloved king. He is meant for the throne. He is the best man for the job, and the people desperately need his leadership.
It is his destiny, and it is a pure good thing.
Right.
But then there is positive B.
Positive B is keeping his solemn personal promise to protect Queen Devasana's dignity and her fundamental right to choose her own husband, standing against the manipulative, corrupt plots of the royal court.
He wants both of those things. I mean, he deserves both of those things.
He does, but the conflict is engineered so that it is mathematically impossible to have both. The court politics ensure that choosing one means permanently, irreversibly losing the other.
So what does this all mean for the audience sitting in the dark theater? Structurally, the author has placed the hero in a vice grip of morality.
Yeah.
You want the crown to help your people, you lose your honor and betray the woman you love. You keep your honor and protect her dignity, you lose the kingdom and abandon your people to a tyrant.
The tension is excruciating. And Amarendra makes his choice. He chooses love, he chooses justice, and he chooses to honor his given word over ultimate political power. He sacrifices the crown. He literally steps down from the throne, accepting exile, to stand by his wife.
Watching him make that sacrifice is one of the most powerful moments in modern cinema. And it's not because of the visual effects.
No.
It's because of the empathy it generates. When we see a character sacrifice a profound positive for an even higher principle, our brains physically lock into their emotional state.
That specific moral choice is the ultimate proof of the story's philosophical vision. Rajamouli uses this structural pivot to broadcast his core belief. True royalty is not defined by sitting on a golden throne or wielding a massive army.
Right.
Royalty is defined by moral integrity, keeping your promises, and the unwavering protection of the innocent, even at the cost of your own power.
It all comes back to the foundation. When you lay it out like this, applying Truby's Chapter 1 mechanics, the whole movie just clicks into place.
It really does.
It's not just a bunch of random, cool set pieces stitched together with a massive effects budget. It is a masterclass in structural discipline.
Rajamouli laid down a flawless foundation, a clear premise synthesized into a single active sentence, a symbolic designing principle where the geography of the waterfall dictates the thematic journey.
Yeah.
A highly resonant, symmetrical central conflict across two generations. A transformative character arc moving from aimless physical power to visionary moral action. And capping it all off, a devastating moral choice between two profound positives.
Which gives us the complete, indestructible DNA of a masterpiece.
But having the DNA is just the beginning of the writing process.
Oh, of course.
Once you have that foundation laid, the narrative still has to move. The next monumental challenge is mapping out the actual step-by-step progression of the plot. How do you move a character from that initial state of aimless weakness through a complex, escalating battle and finally into a new, hard-won equilibrium?
And that involves John Truby's 7 steps of story structure, which our source material promises to cover next as they continue to dissect this incredible epic. There is so much more to unpack regarding how this narrative engine actually drives the plot forward.
I can't wait to get into that.
Me too. But for now, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final lingering thought. Think about your own favorite movie or your favorite novel.
Oh, that's a great exercise.
Yeah, not necessarily an epic blockbuster, just a story that has always stuck with you, the one you constantly recommend to friends. Can you pinpoint its moral choice?
That is a phenomenal analytical exercise.
Look closely at the climax of that story. Does the hero actually have to choose between two undeniable positives? Are they forced into a true dilemma where they must sacrifice something deeply, genuinely good to achieve something even greater.
It's rarely what you expect.
Right, because once you start looking for that structural DNA, you realize that it isn't the flashy exterior that makes a story resonate. It's the invisible, perfectly balanced architecture underneath. It completely changes the way you look at every story you consume. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It has been an absolute blast taking this analytical journey with you. We'll catch you next time.